Dome. That's right. The Golden State Warriors at 10-2 are taking on the Los Angeles Clippers at 7-7. And we get our first look at what appears to be the brand shiny new toy of the NBA and especially of Steve Ballmer. But this is Warriors Live presented by Xfinity. Stream sports from the best seats in the house with Xfinity. Bring on the good stuff. Evan Giddings with you on 95.7 The Game. I got you for Warriors Live as well as Warriors wrap up tonight. Again, as the Warriors begin somewhat of a busy week. 4 games in this week after they get a bit of a break between their last matchup, which turned out to be somewhat of a slim win, 123-118 on Friday night against the Memphis Grizzlies. But the Warriors, the next 4 games, 3 of which will actually be on the road. So Golden State right now is 6-1 as a road team. Of course, 4-1 as a home team. Picked up a few W's last week, including one on Sunday against Oklahoma City. And then on Tuesday night, Klay Thompson's return, that was an absolute thriller in 120-117 fashion. And then the 5-point W on Friday in a game against a Memphis team that the Warriors probably might have overlooked a little bit. Heard that they were a bit, worried about potentially not having as much energy off of an emotional game that they won earlier in the week against Dallas. But they took care of the Grizzlies after building a 20-plus point lead, ended up shrinking a bit. I guess there was some late dramatics in that game. Steve Kerr was not very happy, of course, after picking up a technical foul. And then the referees ended up actually ejecting Draymond Green after a flagrant one. So there were some fireworks down the stretch of that game, but the Warriors relatively handled a Memphis team that I think they were expecting to at relative strength. But this week, tonight, obviously, the Los Angeles Clippers. Wednesday, the lone home game of the week against the Atlanta Hawks. On Friday, at the New Orleans Pelicans. 3rd time already that they'll have faced the Pels. And then on Saturday, on a back-to-back, they go down south to take on Victor Wembanyama and the San Antonio Spurs. So a 4-game week, 3 of 4 on the road for the Warriors. But tonight, they get the Los Angeles Clippers, who are the only team that is not undefeated to have beaten the Warriors this season. That was back on October 27th, a few weeks ago, in 112-104 fashion. It's their first ever visit to the Intuit Dome, but more importantly, I think it's something that the Warriors right now at 10-2, they're top the Western Conference, they're looking good, but I think that one game against the Clippers was a receipt that I put in my back pocket, and it's not one that you can, I think, make overwhelming assumptions about, but Curry got hurt in that game, and it was a game in which I think the Clippers had in relative control before, but this is a team without Kawhi Leonard. They lost Paul George to the Philadelphia 76ers this offseason. They obviously refused to do business this summer in the trade market with the Warriors, so we didn't really know what the Clippers were going to be, but this is a team that has evidently played with a chip on its shoulder and basically been counted out so far by many of, kind of those critics or pundits, myself being one of them, in the Western Conference. But 7-7 they stand. One of those 7 wins was against the Warriors. And I think it had to do a lot with the size that the Los Angeles Clippers are able to offer, along with kind of the versatile wings that have been playing up so far this season. The other part about this team that has so far been, a mainstay from last year has been James Harden. And actually, Cam, if we could cue this up real fast, I thought it was an interesting quote that James Harden had just a few days ago, is because not many people think about Harden as, maybe one of the greatest three-point shooters of all time, but due to pure volume. In fact, in 2018, I believe the year he won MVP, he took over 1,000 threes in a season. And to put that into perspective, Klay Thompson, who hit over 300 threes just a couple of years ago to lead the NBA, I don't even know if he eclipsed 850. So James Harden is a volume three-point shooter, but a few days ago, he just moved into second place all time among three-point shooters. He broke Ray Allen's previous spot in the second hole, and of course, only trails Steph Curry. So there was somewhat of a comedic back and forth, I thought, after that game. James Harden was speaking on if he'd have a chance to ever catch the chef. Here's what he had to say.
I'm one of the most confident, guys that we have in this league. But no, I probably won't catch Steph.
Yeah, I'm pretty damn confident. I think I'm pretty good at this game we call basketball. I'm never catching Curry. And I would also have to agree with that. And it's not just because Steph could retire today and James Harden might have a little bit of an issue. But certainly if Steph Curry continues to shoot it at the clip that he has, and so far this season, he's making nearly 4 threes a game at 43.2%, it is going to be very difficult for anybody Nevertheless, James Harden, who is the active second-place leader among three-point makes to catch Steph Curry, has got nearly 3,800 for his career. So with that, the news about Steph, not necessarily big tonight, but people were wondering as Curry was listed earlier, according to Anthony Slater, with left knee bursitis. I think that anytime Curry has some sort of injury designation, people get a little bit cautious. He will play tonight, however. Went through morning shoot-around and has been spotted on the court recently for warm-ups for this 7:30 game. A little bit later tonight for those Dubs fans out there. But he was on the court earlier. He has been getting himself ready for this game, and he is going to play. Also, Lindy Waters III, who went down with an injury during the Memphis game on a play that, he kind of caught Sandy Aldama from behind in an effort that I thought was, largely athletic and one that was a bit unexpected by Lindy Waters, but was listed with a knee injury, was questionable entering the day for the night game. He will play also tonight for the Clippers. So the Warriors are dealing with a couple of injuries, which brings us to tonight's injury report brought to you by Boxer & Gerson, Northern California's premier workers' compensation law firm, helping injured workers get their lives back for over 40 years. For more information, go visit boxerlaw.com. Mention how the size back on October 27th gave the Warriors a bit of fits. Zubats, obviously, in the center position, has been someone that has had somewhat of an easier time against the Warriors. It seems to always kind of kill them. He had a double-double in the first game in that Clippers 8-point victory. But one note, injury-wise for the Warriors, that will certainly impact that, approach for Steve Kerr is going to be Kevon Looney. He, the Iron Man, pretty much all of last season, even the years before, he hasn't missed games unless it's been pretty much on purpose. The guy is seemingly always right and has his body in his best shape as ever, but he has an illness, and so he's been ruled out for tonight's game against the Clippers. And unfortunately, DeAnthony Melton, he was dealing with a back injury earlier on this season that kept him out sporadically for about 4 or 5 games, but now he unfortunately has suffered a sprained left ACL, and so he was out against Memphis, got hurt towards the end of the Dallas game, and he was out for the Memphis game. Of course, also going to be out for tonight and is going to miss an extended period of time. Not exactly sure how much, but we will not probably see DeAnthony Melton for some time. As for the Los Angeles Clippers, Kawhi Leonard, of course, is out. Was somebody that was dealing with a knee injury prior to the season and is going to be out for also an undisclosed, indefinite amount of time, according to Shams Charania. And then PJ Tucker is out tonight and will not be with the team moving forward. That's according to Joey Lynn of Sports Illustrated. So 2 absences that I think people were pretty much aware of for the Clippers. The other guy who was listed on their injury report was Mo Bamba, backup center for the Clippers. But they're at relative full strength against, again, a Warriors team that they were able to beat last time they saw them in their first meeting, and was the Warriors' first loss of the season. And it was probably because of somebody named Norman Powell. James Harden was pretty decent in that basketball game, along with Zubats, but this guy Norman Powell has been someone that has kind of turned into not just as a secondary scorer, but a primary scorer for the Los Angeles Clippers. And what he's done recently, especially against the Golden State Warriors, was fantastic shooting the basketball. Last time they played, he had 20 points in just 28 minutes and hit a couple of threes. But he's had a 37-point performance this year in a win against Denver. He's had a 30-burger against Sacramento. That was also a double-double performance for Norman Powell. He's made nearly 4 threes per game, shooting above 40% from three-point range, almost 50% from the field. And even back to his days in Toronto, was somewhat of a Warriors killer. So certainly a name to keep an eye on tonight for the Warriors. They're trying to keep the Los Angeles Clippers in check on the defensive end. But as for the Warriors, what they're kind of trying to figure out offensively, the starting lineup is probably, with Waters and Curry involved, going to be similar to what we saw against Memphis, with Curry playing alongside Lindy Waters, along with Draymond Green, Trace Jackson Davis, and, of course, Andrew Wiggins. Steve Kerr's talked about the combination between Curry and Lindy Waters, and one that is a little bit similar to how Curry plays alongside Buddy Hield. Waters is not as perhaps active of a shooter, or doesn't have as much of a green light as someone like Buddy Hield, but he gives the Warriors some flexibility and is a little bit of a different player from Moses Moody that Kerr likes to pair alongside Curry, and the numbers as far as two-man combinations would back that up. I think some people were a bit perplexed by Moses Moody, and I wasn't perplexed, but certainly had my eyebrow raised that Moody was not into the starting lineup after the scratch of Melton with the sprained ACL, but also something that I caught note of going into the second half of that game after Waters got hurt on Friday night was that Kerr went to Brandon Podziemski alongside Curry. Podziemski nearly played 30 minutes. Buddy Hield was at 30 minutes. And so that three-guard rotation with Waters now into the mix is going to, I think, do a couple of things. Number one, give the Warriors some more options in regards to their shooting and the depth, which we can get to in a minute, but also the fact that this is going to allow, I think, the Warriors to basically not have to lean all the way into Steph. I mean, he's averaging 23 points per game, obviously had sensational performances in the 4 of the last 5 games, I would say, that they played. And you go back to Boston a week and a half ago on Wednesday was awesome in the Garden. After kind of an overall down game from the team against Cleveland, he was sensational against Oklahoma City at 35 plus in both games against the Thunder as well as the Dallas Mavericks with, a more defining shot than ever down the stretch of that basketball game, and sealed the deal in one that was pretty much right in the hands of Dallas. So Steph is still as good as ever when he needs to summon it. The one thing that I think that this Warriors team is built to do is not demand him to summon it on every single night. The Clippers are a team that I think is maybe a little bit of a matchup problem for the Warriors, but it doesn't mean that they still can't get this victory tonight and figure out how to continue to stack W's as they have through the first 12 games. Again, they are 10-2. Their only 2 losses are to these Clippers, as well as the now 15-0 Cleveland Cavaliers, who look to be approaching 2016 Golden State Warriors range in regards to how hot they have been to start. The other thing that I kind of took away from that Friday game as we roll along here on Warriors Live with Evan Giddings, also be with you for Warriors wrap-up after the game. 7:30 tip between the Clippers and the Warriors. Tim Roy's got you at the top of the hour for the rest of your network pregame show, is the fact that Draymond Green appears to be, I don't know if it's turning a new leaf, but he was ejected from that game, and I was a little bit interested to hear what he had to say after the game. And Draymond sort of has this ability to go to the podium if he likes, and he chose to do so. And I thought it was interesting that Steve Kerr was actually the one, both after the game on the court, but also in his post-game press conference, he was the one, Kerr was, that was the one going after the referees, didn't agree with calls down the stretch, thought they tried to kind of turn it into a game. I don't know, maybe he was mad about, the point differential for the NBA Cup the Warriors might have lost out on after starting 2-0. That's obviously a joke. And Draymond Green, however, was the one that went to his press conference and basically spent most of the time talking about Macklin Celebrini, the latest number 1 overall pick for the San Jose Sharks, and the son of Rick Celebrini, the director of sports medicine for the Warriors. So the fact that Draymond didn't seemingly care about his ejection, isn't maybe the most shocking thing, but his demeanor and his lack of emotion was something that I did necessarily note. And who knows? So maybe it also has to do with the fact that he's shooting 45% from three-point range, which would be, of course, the career high. But he's 19 of 42. On Friday, he hit another 3 threes. He's made multiple three-pointers Draymond Green has in each of his last 4 games, which matches a career best streak. The Warriors have won all 3 of those games this season and are 55-7 all time when Green makes at least 3-pointers in a game. So he's been aggressive shooting it, and he hasn't necessarily been, at least so far, aggressive enough off the court. Hasn't been going after refs. Of course, got a flagrant 1, ended up getting ejected from that game. But I was impressed that Draymond didn't take it a step further and, didn't podcast about it, just kind of kept it moving. It's not an issue if Draymond Green gets ejected from games. It's an issue if he gets suspended and compounds the emotional mistakes, which are inevitably going to happen, in my opinion, to Draymond as we know him. So that's something to keep a note as well. Moving forward here on Warriors Live, it's time for our Take It to the Bank prediction, brought to you by Fremont Bank's full-service banking with no compromises. I think tonight is going to be a Brandon Podziemski night, and Podziemski was somebody that had struggled a bit last week. Oklahoma City and Dallas saw some fits again, got 28 minutes on Friday against Memphis, but I think it's going to be a Pods night for a couple of reasons. Number one, the on-ball defense for the Clippers, I don't think is as, locked down as other teams in the West. That's number one. But more importantly, I think the Warriors will and also should be cautious with Steph. Look, he has left knee bursitis, but any injury designation to me means that if you can keep Curry, who, by the way, did not play in the fourth quarter entirely against the Memphis Grizzlies on Friday, if you can keep him as few minutes as possible, and Kerr has explicitly stated he wants his average to be around 30, nothing more than 32. Well, then when you have those kind of tight games, those go-gettable games like they did last week against the Bostons and the Dallases, that's when you can lean on Steph for those 35-minute and hopeful dominant performances. So in the meantime, the Warriors without Melton don't really have a backup guard that can handle the rock, and that's why I think Brandon Podziemski is going to play tonight. And typically when he has, he puts up, at least for him, big numbers. 15, 5, and 5 assists and rebounds is not a line that I would not expect tonight from Podziemski. He also has typically appeared alongside Curry as well as Buddy Hield. And even with Waters back and healthy, I think that Podziemski is going to play heavy minutes to try and take some of that taxing off of Steph Curry. All right, here on Warriors Live, presented by Xfinity. At home or on the go, you'll get the fastest internet on all your devices. Also, time to take a look at our out-of-town game of the night, presented by San Francisco International Airport. Wherever your team goes, you can get there from SFO. Well, there's a game that's already in progress that I kind of had dialed up. It's Houston, who I've been dead wrong about so far. They're 10-4 through 14 games, at Milwaukee, a Bucks group that obviously has had a really tough start to the season, but has allegedly all the talent in the world. And the underlying storyline in that game is the fact that Giannis Antetokounmpo is perceived as a gettable, perhaps trade target, and a team that has been constantly referenced as one that's ready to make a move or that is positioned best around the NBA because of their draft capital, because of the young players, is the Houston Rockets. So obviously had my eyes on that game. But the other game that's probably coming up in just a little bit that I also will be watching, in addition to the Warriors, is Sacramento and Atlanta. And there's a really good point guard matchup between Trae Young for the Hawks, who last week also knocked off the Boston Celtics in a late game flurry. But also De'Aaron Fox has quietly been doing something that not many players across NBA history has done, which is score 60 points in one game and then the next night drop 49. He's scored 109 points in the past two games, and De'Aaron Fox has been absolutely electric across his career, but appears to be taking a next step as far as scoring the basketball. And so Sacramento hosting Atlanta is certainly one to keep an eye on. That one tips off in about 10 minutes. The Golden State Warriors will tip off in about 40-ish minutes, 7:30 tip, Intuit Dome. Tim Roy will have the call. Also, the remainder of your network pregame as we move along here towards the top of the hour. My name is Evan Giddings. I'll have Warriors wrap up for you after. But as for a couple of other notes I thought would be interesting, which again leans into how much they do or don't need someone like Steph or even Wiggins on a given night. Golden State Warriors, their bench has been averaging nearly 60 points per game, which would be far and away, since they started recording this statistic back in 1970, would be the most of a team ever. The season high is actually the Los Angeles Clippers, who did it in 2018-19 when they were led primarily by, Lemon Pepper Lou Williams, who was averaging 20 off the bench. Perhaps even Jamal Crawford was a guy that was a big sixth man for them back in the day. But 53.2 points is the most by a bench across an entire season. The Warriors are averaging 58.8 bench points per game, and they have scored at least 40 points in 11 of their first 12 games of the season, a first, again, since these stats were being tracked in 1970 and 1971. So the Golden State Warriors are a team that has been dependent on their bench, and is one that I think they'll lean into again tonight as they try and take on the Clippers and hand them a loss after being defeated at home by the Clippers in a game that Curry got hurt. But nonetheless, the Clippers are the only team that is not undefeated in the league to beat Golden State, and that was the tail end of November. So they'll try and enact some revenge tonight. We'll chop it up after the game, taking your phone calls as always at 888-957-9570, Comcast Business Line, all the rest. But moving on, next we send things down to Los Angeles and to your voice of the Golden State Warriors, Tim Roy's got the remainder of your network pregame as well as the call coming up at 7:30. The Warriors and the Clippers. We'll talk to you after the game. You've been listening to Warriors Live, presented by Xfinity. At home or on the go, you'll get the fastest internet to all your devices.
It's game time, Bay Area basketball fans. Whether you're flying out to catch an away game or planning